On today's show, we're going to give our hangover takes from last night's loss to the Knicks. Also, Bogdan Bogdanovic might be available. We're going to talk about him and some of the biggest trades that could shape the Western Conference. Also, Tim Legler joins the show, and he still likes the Nuggets.
Whoa.
He's a fan.
Spoiler alert.
We'll talk about all that next. We are back.
Oh, doctor.
We are back.
Oh, it's a Team Serbia episode? Who are they playing?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets Podcast. We are coming to you live from the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR, and presented today by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use the code DNVR365 at sign up. Bet with Bet365. Fun show planned today. A lot to go over. Trade market heating up. We are exactly a week away from the NBA trade deadline. We'll be live for the trade deadline, of course, next week as it happens to break down any move that might come with the Nuggets, Western Conference, NBA. We'll be live to talk about all of it. We've got a lot to talk about today. I'm Harrison Wynn, joined by D-Line Co.
That's right, guys. I haven't watched the Nuggets for a week. Are we still streaking, or what's going on?
I hate to break it to you, streaking, but in the wrong direction.
Oh.
Remember how good you felt before?
Yeah.
Flip it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Technically, streaking, they've done something 3 times in a row.
All
They've
right.
lost 3 times in a row.
I guess I'll turn my friend around and then right back the other direction.
I've been streaking my whole life. I can lose consecutively. I did not know that. Yeah.
You can streak both ways.
I'm a streaker.
Let's, before we get to all the trade deadline talk, we'll talk Bogdan Bogdanovic. Mark Stein had a rumor that he's probably available to get in a deal right now. We'll talk about some of the other big trades that could shape the Western Conference. Let's go to hangover takes first.
Oh, my
and
God.
reminisce even more about this loss last night to the New York Knicks.
I just got a headache.
I have a pounding headache. I need some ibuprofen stats.
Can someone get me some electrolytes, please?
Give me some anti-inflammatories.
Give me that old sponsor we used to have.
Yeah. Or can we just go to Waffle House at least? Something, please.
Man.
Do you guys have any hangover takes you want to start with?
I did kind of forget about hangover takes this time, mostly because that game was so bad.
It's okay if the answer is no.
Wait, was that the whole answer? Okay.
I thought he was about to
Yeah, it
go
really
into a
seemed like he
hangover
was.
take.
It really seemed like he was loading up.
Yeah,
for
I
something.
thought I don't have one in my back pocket. I'm going to keep it real. I don't.
All right, so
Okay.
here's my hangover take.
Okay.
The Nuggets are in a really rough spot right now, and I don't think it's related to their play on the floor. I don't know what's going on with them, but that game was very out of character for almost everybody on the squad. Obviously, the game went off the rails immediately with Jokic picking up those 2 fouls, which, by the way, he did in a very lazy fashion. But then the rest of the game, like the Nuggets actually caught the Knicks after that. Like they actually were in a position to win. At the end of the day, it's just one of those games that you look at and you just, like, I don't know how much you can pull from it, but like it was really, really uninspired play.
Would you feel better about last night's game if they had lost by the same amount, but Nikola Jokic had played a regular, normal game?
No, I would feel worse.
I'd feel worse also, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
To me, this is like you can write it off.
Because
Like,
I would feel better.
to me, it's like you could look at that game and be like, well, if it mattered, Jokic would have shown up and they would have won. If Jokic plays a good game and they lose, you're like, oh, we can't beat the Knicks.
See, I would feel better because the Knicks are good, especially at home. Like, the Knicks are a really good team. Their offense has been incredible. They have put up 140 points in their last 2 games. Only scored 120 against Denver. And so like the reason I felt so weird after last night's game and I felt particularly bad about the team was because Jokic had those 2 quick fouls and just never really got engaged back in the game in any way, shape, or form. The weirdness of that and just how bizarre it was, that's the part that stuck with me. I feel like if he had played decent and they had just lost by 10 points at the Knicks, I would have felt better about it, actually.
You know, Malone had some interesting comments after the game. You know, he'll lament effort in a win. He felt Harrison and Eric. I don't know why. It's very Cedric of me. Harrison for you.
Harrison.
He felt like the effort was good in that game. You know, that the guys generally played the right way. I tend to agree. So I guess my hangover take is Jokic and Porter sold that one.
Yeah.
And look, some of the Jokic stuff is overstated.
Totally.
But like the reality is just that he got 2 quick fouls and he wasn't able to be a factor from there. And however you want to look at it from there, that's a very thick bottom line. Like that matters a lot. But I didn't think the guys rolled over from a pride perspective. In fact, the guys who played without Jokic did their thing. So it's kind of it's a really, really tough game to sort of to sit there and because it's an extension of a losing streak where you feel like you're learning a lot. And it's also just a mess of a game. We didn't even really get to learn more about Denver's brand new rotation that they rolled out.
Exactly.
Because right off the bat, it got scrambled. So this is not about an excuse, by the way. They got
the hangover take.
I'm just trying to sort through like what could we learn from that game, and it's
nothing.
I don't want to say nothing. It's just it's obfuscated. Is that the word? Is that a word?
I'm not sure.
It is a word. What are you trying to say?
That it's
obscured.
It's obscured. It's muddy. It's muddy. It's hard to. It's not a clear picture.
I think that was the right word.
I'm guessing, man.
Obfuscated. I feel like at the end of the day, I feel like Jokic was not Jokic. MPJ was not MPJ, and like you said, those 2 players did not contribute in ways they typically do, and what was needed. And I was bummed out about it. And I'm over it now, but also like I just feel generally grumpy about the Nuggets right now. Like I feel like I've been infected with the malaise, and I don't want to be like in the malaise. Like I don't like that. Things were so beautiful before, and perhaps that's the problem is that we betrayed what we're betraying it right now. I mean, we're the oldest advice you can ever give or understand in an NBA basketball season is never too high, never too low. Yep. We were quite high. Now I'm exquisitely low.
And we're always higher or lower than the team is. That's another thing to keep in mind. Like significantly higher and lower.
And we definitely got too high on that last run. But part of it was that
I don't know.
But part of it was because
they won 9 out of 12.
And they were beating the crap out of
9 out of 11, whatever.
But they were winning by 20 points a game.
This is what's hilarious. And this is kind of what I was trying to get at on the show last night. That amazing stretch where you justifiably feel great about the team. Justifiably.
Yes.
3-game skid that looks pretty ugly. They are now going to get to play some bad teams. They may well put together a really nice stretch.
We're back.
So then that's the challenge, right? Do we do it again?
Yes, of course we do.
So it's a real roller coaster we're on.
That stretch, they were so good, though.
They were.
They were so connected.
It wasn't all fool's gold.
In the end, like, you're supposed to ride the roller coaster. Like, we're supposed to be bummed out right now because then obviously the juice becomes all the sweeter at the top. We know that, even though we were all kind of miserable anyway.
Last really one night of juice,
it kind of ruined our lives shortly thereafter. That's not the point. But like, this is if you don't want to go through this, like, just read box scores.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, just look at the NBA through an Excel doc. But this is what it is, man. When the team's playing badly, like, my life is worse.
So we also got some interesting quotes after the game about the starting lineup. One from Michael Malone, one from Christian Braun. And if you missed it, the starting lineup change that happened last night was significant, although, like you said, Jokic 2 fouls pretty much meant that Christian Braun, who got removed from the starting lineup, came right back in.
Come on down,
right
Christian.
on the floor with the starters without Jokic. Michael Malone after the game said, the Nuggets lineup change is not necessarily permanent, but that's a decision we made for the time being, and we're going to give it a chance to see where it goes. And Christian Braun also talked about the lineup change. He said and this is about him going to the bench. Obviously, I took a lot of pride in having that spot, trying to win that spot, and I'm going to work to try to get it back. That's my job. But whether I'm coming off the bench or starting, I'm very grateful for every opportunity that I got. That's via Bennett Durando of the Post. So Christian Braun seems like he's pissed about losing that job. I don't blame him. I mean, he probably should feel a little pissed.
I love that.
I do love that too. I mean, he won that spot, and now he's going back to the bench.
And I don't think pissed in a way that's a distraction. I don't think Christian makes a deal of it. I think Christian, as a competitor, internalizes it.
Of course. Man. And like, it probably drives him to be better.
Yeah.
Vogt, get off the show. Be better.
You better be pissed about it too.
Good luck, guys.
I got some quotes.
It's not necessarily permanent, Vogt, just for the time being.
Yeah.
But I do get to leave. Is that what you're saying? No.
Right, let me just summarize what I heard.
You're doing ad reads, by the way, here.
Oh, son of a bitch.
But I like that quote from Malone because, I mean, I like it and don't like it. I would love if the Nuggets starting lineup could change maybe based on the matchup, but it does seem like he's going to it with the intention of, if it works, that's going to be the starting lineup every game. And look, like, the thinking behind it, I think it's pretty clear. Russell Westbrook has to be playing with Nikola Jokic to play at his best. And if you bring him off the bench, that's, at least 4 minutes at the start of both quarters that he's not going to be on the floor with Jokic for. Mm-hmm. That's 8 minutes. Like, that's not worth it. So we'll see who closes games. That will be a different discussion, but I think this is going to be the starting lineup from the time being. And Christian Braun's just going to have to adjust a little bit.
Who do you guys think has a better chance of raising the bench? Both Christian Braun and Russell Westbrook are going to go look good next to Jokic. Who stands a better chance of making that second unit better?
That's the issue. The issue is that Russell Westbrook demonstrated very clearly that he cannot early in the season.
As virtually no backup point guard has, by the way.
Not virtually. Exactly.
Maybe Bones Highland. Oh, wait, he was starting that year. That was the thing.
Listen, first off, like, I think that the rotations over this 3-game losing streak are actually a talking point. Like, I think that they have been very poor. Like, they have not been.
Michael Malone's rotations have not been made with the game that they were playing in mind. Like, they seemed very much like autopilot. Like, he just knew what they were going to do, and that was that, and that was that, and that was that. And even that oftentimes didn't make sense. It really bothered, like, last night too, it was just, I really wanted more than anything to feel like we had a little clarity on this thing that I've been saying, like kicking the can down the road. Like, it is going to get, like, you cannot keep bringing AG off the bench. As nice, as cool as it is, like, imagine how Christian Braun feels. Like, AG, it's not just that he's coming off the bench, like, he's getting bench minutes. Like, he's getting a truncated amount of game minutes because he's coming off the bench. Like, Michael Malone wasn't then putting him in to close the game along. Like, he was just treating him like he was a bench player, which to me is completely misguided and stupid. But all that to be said, like, all that to say, like, I think, like, I don't want him to be reactionary if he's actually trying to find the right answer. Like, they do need to let this rock for a little bit, which is always that's what he does. Like, he's very slow moving. He moves like the Titanic. Maybe not the Titanic. That sunk. It'll kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
A tanker.
Tough example.
Normal tanker. Like a tanker that gets stuck in the Suez Canal.
One that recently, we're talking about ones that made the journey.
I can only think of one big boat, and it was the Titanic.
Typically, to be fair, the
big
really
boats
famous
don't move that great.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah. They run into they
boats
get
are like
stuck in
referees,
the.
Could have just said a cruise ship, tanker, literally anything.
Boats are like referees. You learn their names when there's been a disaster.
That is
true.
So true.
You don't know the names of the boats that smoothly make it there and back.
Yeah. So anyway, he's like a nameless tanker. Like, it takes a long time to move, but I like that. Like, I like that he makes, like, he puts forth the theorem, he tests it fully, and then he makes a change. It's very frustrating in the moment, but, like, they have to figure this out, like, what the right rotation is, because you can make arguments on either side, but, like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. They got to figure it out.
Yeah. And they're going to give this some runway to see if it can work. And probably up until the trade deadline, I would guess, they roll with this starting lineup at least. And then, kind of reassess coming out on the other side of that with the All-Star break. But we'll certainly see. Not a great first debut, but
poor.
They'll get another shot at it tomorrow in Philadelphia against the 76ers.
Where Embiid will undoubtedly play.
He's out.
Yes,
He's
officially?
out. Yeah, he's out.
What?
Yeah, he's out.
He is actually hurt.
No, I know.
He's missed 14 straight games.
But it did feel like maybe he'd come back for this one.
Him and Paul George are out tomorrow.
Oh, my God.
We're back.
We better be back. We better be back.
Let's hit a break. We'll talk Bogdan Bogdanovic. Is he a realistic trade target for the Nuggets? We'll get to that on the other side.
Our life is just a record player, man. Round and round and round we go. Oh, this part again. I remember. This is my favorite part. Sometimes I like to surprise my very real girlfriend by having cooked for her. The problem is that
half of that's fake. It's either the girlfriend or the you cooking. I can't figure out which.
Hey, come on, man. I'm trying to do the read. It's the girlfriend. But the problem with that is I neither know how to cook nor do I understand the ingredients, where to get them, or just really how to put them together. That's why HelloFresh is dope. I get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to my doorstep, apartment doorstep. And that's always a nice treat. I open the door and instead of something greasy and terrible for me, there's a fresh bag of ingredients. Yeah. And I get to feel like I had something to do with this when I put it all together.
Normally I'm like, oh, hello, grease.
Yeah. Or
Hello Fresh, a much better
12 donuts, you know what I mean? Yeah, right. But HelloFresh is pretty lit. Yeah. Then I put it all together exactly how they tell me to, and I feel like a genius. You can get up to 10 free meals and a free high protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/Nuggets10FM. That's a little bit different than our normal
free
codes.
Meal.
So make sure you have free meal, right? So Nuggets10FM. And you'll get one item per box with active subscriptions. Free meals applied as discounts on the first box. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That's up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/Nuggets10FM. America's #1 meal kit, baby. And when you're hanging out, we do 5 shows a week here. There's post-game shows, but when we're live for game nights, we also go live before the game as well. And that's our pregame show. And on the pregame show, we hand out some awesome bets from Bet365. Now, to play along with Superstar Dev, you of course need to download the Bet365 app, where it's never ordinary. Use the code DNVR365 when you sign up. You're going to get tons of sweet offers that come your way. Custom offers even from us at DNVR. We think long and hard about those. Please do play responsibly, right? We're doing this for fun. Can't guarantee you winners, but hey, man, Superstar Dev every now and then, man. He's got some up his sleeve. So play along if you'd like. Play responsibly on our pregame shows and our pregame picks with Bet365. Download it now. Use DNVR365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
I always can tell Dev's temperament on the podcast based on if he won or lost his bets that night.
Yeah. I think last night he lost some bets.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Well, he probably lost because Jokic had a normal stat line. 17, 6, and 6, I think it was.
Yes. When betting on the Nuggets, if the Nuggets are back, we win. If the Nuggets are not back, whatever.
Right. At the end of the day, the golden rule is it's all about how well they play.
Yeah.
And that directly impacts us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Now, that is a fact. We're back here on the DNVR Nuggets podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use the code DNVR365 when you sign up. Coming to you from the Toyota Lounge. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Shout out to everybody hanging out in the Toyota chat on this off day. The Nuggets are in Philly. I saw they took the train to Philly. That's a classic.
Oh, what a
stop on the road trip,
Dude,
you go from the Knicks in Manhattan down to Philly via the train.
Dude, I took that train ride, although from Boston to Philly. And it was not romantic like you might think it was. It was.
Oh, I loved it.
Very jostly, and I tried to work the whole time.
Are there different? Is there like a first class car?
Of course,
yeah. Come on, dude. There's class systems everywhere you look, baby. Come on.
No, stupid question.
Yeah, you're like, is the East Coast steeped in a caste system?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
I just didn't know what type of train we're talking. I'm not out there much.
I think 2 or 3 years ago, when we first started at the DNVR, did the Boston, Philly, Brooklyn, New York road trip, and it was really fun, man. Working on the trains back and forth. The writing was not good, but the experience was very romantic.
You know, Malone loves that shit too.
Oh, dude, he's like so in his element.
He's just probably just right. He's probably got like he turns train mode on in his mind. And he's like got his.
Dude, he's like, oh, hey, you know who sat there in that very seat? The bad boy Pistons.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember when I was on this train, 1998. I was working under Jeff Van Gundy.
You know when you're on you're on vacation and you're at a beach and you've got your tropical cocktail and you're like, yeah, this is the vibe.
Yeah.
The very real Northeast equivalent of that is it's raining.
Yeah.
And you've got a styrofoam cup full of shitty coffee.
It's world's best coffee.
You're eating a shitty donut,
and you're kind of like, you know what? This is a vibe. Yeah. I could make this work.
Yep.
That's the Irishman. If you haven't seen
we're gonna
it.
make Kel write so many reports.
Sorry,
today.
guys. Northeast just
guys.
brought it
The
out
trade deadline is exactly 1 week from today, and we'll be live during it. We'll have a special trade deadline show live 30 minutes before the deadline and 30 minutes after the deadline for an hour, bringing you all our instant reactions from whatever trades go down. And we got a new trade rumor today via our friend of the show, Mark Stein, who is reporting with Jake Fisher that Bogdan Bogdanovic is not only available for trade, but now Atlanta, it sounds like they're going to have multiple offers and there are multiple potential landing spots for Bogdan Bogdanovic before next week's trade deadline. We know Bogdan Bogdanovic pretty well right now because we talk about him before every trade deadline every year.
Yeah, we've done this.
We could probably just replay the segment from last year.
He is the new Kevin Love.
3 weeks ago, even. 3 weeks ago, I think we did it.
Bogey is the new Love.
Nikola Jokic's Serbian teammate. I would say, I know Nikola Jokic's friends pretty well, I feel like. Seems like he's in the inner circle of Jokic's buddies.
Definitely.
There are a couple guys in there. I think Bogdanovic is definitely in there. Luka's in there, but him and Jokic very close. There's that picture. It's actually on the trade deadline tracker, Kale. I put it in there. I've never seen Jokic smile more than maybe in that picture of him and Bogdan. You know which one I'm talking about. They're good friends. Let me give you a little rundown of Bogdanovic's season so far because I think we have this image, of Bogdan Bogdanovic in our minds. He's had a rough season, though. He's been injured a lot, and hasn't played in a ton of games. I believe he's only played in 14 games this season for the Hawks.
That happens to him sometimes.
He's injury prone, and he's only shooting like 30% from three this season. So it's been a rough year. It seems like the Hawks are finally, ready to see if they can get a return for him, trying to cash out that chip. They're not going anywhere this season. And it'd be a tough trade to make. There are a couple potential... he's played in 24 games this season, not 14. It'd be a tough trade to make. There are a couple potential packages, which I have outlined in our trade deadline tracker on DNVR.com.
Great work.
That Denver could do. Is Bogdan Bogdanovic an attractive target? Let's start there, if you're the Nuggets.
To me, it's not just Bogey. Like, you would have to get back that package of Bogey and DeAndre Hunter. So, like Bogdanovic for MPJ, like if we're talking MPJ specifically, or do you just mean like, is this a guy I would want to have on the team?
Yeah, would he help the Nuggets?
I do think that he would help the Nuggets.
Yeah.
I think the Nuggets are largely in a place where we know for a fact, mostly for a fact, that they have the requisite talent to win a championship. Most of their core is still in place from the last time they won. It was just a year ago. I don't know if you remember. But now they're like, their vibes are off. They're like, we're in a new vibes era. Like we've talked about, like, this needs to be the professional era of Denver Nuggets basketball. But like that comes with the right people, like having the right ideas and approaching the game and the task at hand in the right way. And I believe, based on what we've seen from Jokic and Bogey in international play, like those two guys understand the assignment, and I just, we've seen like that guy can be a killer, like an absolute killer. He was so good during the Olympics. And it was very inspiring to see. And you would love to have some of that fire and that passion. And not only that, but that comfort of playing alongside Jokic on the Denver Nuggets. Like, obviously, everybody looks good playing next to Jokic, but I think that there's a little extra juice to this one.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, he only played in 24 games, only shooting 30% from three. This is the ultimate, like, he would experience a huge Jokic bump. And I mean, we just know that. Like, he would look good next to Jokic and then the Nuggets system.
He would. There is an if as a shooter, though, which is if you're trading Porter for Bogey comes in as the only tightly contested shooter on the roster. Now, I still think he would get a bump from playing with Jokic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not delusional. But I just, there is something too. Like right now, porting a shooter in for Porter, interesting choice of words there on my part, is you do actually, and I know Mike can miss some open shots, man, but you do have to take into account they actually might be guarded more tightly as the lone shooter on the floor with Jokic. So, I mean, like, Bogey can get hot from deep. I don't think he's necessarily some clearly more consistent shooter than Mike is.
No, definitely.
However,
No, he's not.
he has not played with Jokic, and that is a very significant but and if, and everyone who does seems to get better. If not in terms of raw stats, you see it in the advanced analytics. So, not kidding myself there. In a vacuum, yes, he would help the Nuggets. Yes, he could be a good player for the Nuggets were he to stay on the floor.
So there are a couple trades that I've pulled up here that would be options with the Nuggets and Hawks. One of them is the one that we've spent a lot of time talking about and that most people go to when, you're thinking of a potential Bogdanovic trade. And that's Michael Porter and Zeke Naji for Bogdanovic and DeAndre Hunter.
Which I would do in an absolute heartbeat.
That's a trade where you're trading, a starter in Porter for two real guys in Bogdanovic and Hunter, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think you'd probably start Hunter, and then you'd have Bogdanovic in the Julian Strawther role, which would be a huge upgrade there.
Yes.
So that's one potential deal. And again, it seems like the Hawks want to trade Bogdanovic. It feels like they've wanted to trade Hunter for a while. You could see how that deal would make sense if you're the Hawks, landing Porter, just like more of a star quality guy to pair with Trae Young. I'm sure that's a deal Trae Young would push them to do. So that's one potential deal, and that's been the most popular one and probably the likely one, if there was a deal to make. And then the other one is you can cobble together a package of Zeke Naji, Julian Strawther, Šarić, Tyson, and then maybe you throw in that first round pick if you're the Nuggets for just a Bogdanovic. You can get up to that salary then. And look, maybe if you're going down that road, like you just have to throw a first round pick in there to even get in the room with the Hawks to talk Bogdanovic if it's for that type of package. But those are the two deals that work. It seems like it'd be a package A is the bigger deal with Porter, and then maybe you're getting back Hunter as well. And then package B, which doesn't really seem likely to me because you just don't see like those 4-for-1 swaps.
No.
Just a hard deal to do if you're trying to take on three more players if you're the Hawks, two of them which aren't even NBA players.
Like, who has just like four roster spots?
Nobody does. That's why those trades don't really get done. So the one that seems like somewhat possible, even if I don't think the Nuggets will trade Porter right now, is the bigger 2-for-2 swap.
I would agree with that. You are hoping to round out the roster rather than just replace one guy with one guy. And that's what Porter's max contract has prevented you from doing, especially with the new CBA. Like when you look at how top heavy they are, in addition to just the straight up misses on the back end of the roster, you are somewhat financially limited because you went all in on Mike. So if you're in the mood of if you're in the mind of making a trade, I do think that's the kind of mindset you're looking at.
Yeah, I equated this earlier to Kale, and he kind of agreed and kind of didn't agree, but who cares? But I look at this in a very similar vein than what our beloved Colorado Avalanche just went through with Mikko Rantanen.
Interesting comp.
In that you're trading one of your absolute top guys for two good guys.
Yeah.
And you end up in the aggregate actually getting more because you can sort of fill out and make your roster more solid with two very real guys. Whereas now we have like we have sort of like half in, half out guys. Sometimes they're like Julian Straw, they're half in, half out. Like sometimes he's your guy, sometimes he's not. But I just like DeAndre Hunter, by the way, a very good player.
Right.
Like,
He's actually good.
he's actually really good, and he
Defender,
is
could
a
help.
great
Yeah.
defender. To me, like this deal makes so much sense that
It almost makes too much sense.
it makes so much sense that I'm going to be like, normally I don't get involved in these kind of thoughts and speculations.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you're just betting on what the front office will do and who knows.
Yeah.
But like this one makes so much sense. Like I'm going to be like crestfallen if they don't make it.
And it's the 2-for-1 aspect of it is key, because you're getting a guy to slot into that 3 spot in the starting lineup. And then if you just think about Bogdanovic replacing Strother, like that's just a massive upgrade right there. So,
Well, that I agree. I mean, one thing. Look, even just talking about Bogey on the roster instead of Porter, I think you guys know where I fall on this ultimately.
Well, I would not make that trade.
But you're just talking about like kind of rounding out the whole thing.
I'm saying like if you're saying play just straight up MPJ for Bogey, the Nuggets are better. No, they are not. If you're saying MPJ for 2 players,
Right.
a starter and a guy that makes the bench immediately better, and potentially like those 2 guys could honestly play the 2 and the 3.
I'm playing ball here. I'm just to follow the train of thought. Like I do think the things right now that Bogey could bring to this roster that Porter doesn't. Bogey can dribble, so that's one big one. And I do think he probably would stand a better chance as a bench booster right now than Porter, a guy to play with the second. Not necessarily like change everyone's lives, but just help the bench. But listen, man, I will maintain that the spacing stuff with Mike isn't just a word that people like me use to defend him.
Yeah.
Like I think it matters, man.
I think you're right.
Christian Brown is not a spacer. Russell Westbrook is not a spacer. Aaron Gordon is not a spacer. Peyton Watson is not a spacer. There are Porter is one of maybe 2 guys on the roster that has to be guarded without the ball in his hands. There are big buts. There are big ifs, and I'm open to them. And big buts, and I cannot lie. And I cannot lie about it. Eric. And I cannot lie.
Yeah.
Like last night matters. That the way he disappears sometimes against physical teams matters. I just think people just say you load up Jokic with just defenders, but also when Jokic doesn't have any spacing, we want to pull our hair out. And I just think there is something to hold on to. It's something to really deeply consider.
Yep.
That if Porter's not in this starting lineup, the spacing could absolutely get even worse. Maybe it'd be worth it for what you get back, but that's why I'm such a big fan of Porter in the Jokic lineup.
He's a great shooter.
Let's hit another break. We'll talk some more trades on the other side, some other big trades that could go down in the Western Conference. And then we'll talk to Tim Legler,
Whoa!
who will shake some sense into all of us.
Holy smokes.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K, guys, like membership programs. There's the new Inner Circle members. This is my favorite reference.
Dude,
man.
I
No
just
one gets
realized,
it.
I just started laughing because I realized I don't know the whereabouts of my wet lip cigarette. I think it might be stuck in the chair or over. I was thinking about maybe I'll go to Circle K and load back up.
It could be anywhere. Right now, with Circle K, you can download their map, you can pull up offers, and you can look for the Inner Circle membership program, and you're going to get deals. Deals like little treats and snacks, deals like 25 cents off per gallon, per X gallons when you first fill up with Circle K. And listen, man, you spend a lot of time on the road. If you listen to podcasts, that's probably the case. You get a little hungry. Don't forget to pull into Circle K for a snack. And don't forget that if you are in the inner circle, fellas, the inner circle, snack time can be real treat time, real privilege time.
Plus,
for
think
you.
about the feeling you have just walking in that place,
Knowing you're part of
throwing
the
your
inner
weight
circle.
around. Like you're like other people that walk around that are in there. You're just like, bro, you are not part of it. I can look at you and know you're not a member.
Oh, dude, and it's like being a diehard at the DNVR bar. You walk, you kind of get the Vince McMahon walk going on. The cashier at Circle K has no idea what's happening.
No one's allowed to look you in the eyes.
And then you just say, listen, man, what I've done is I've downloaded the Circle K app and I've signed up for Inner Circle for exclusive offers. New offers, purchase clubs, and sweepstakes are uploaded weekly. He might say, why are you talking to me like that? And you just say, don't worry about it, man. Those are just the facts.
Them's the facts.
Those are just the facts. You know what else is the facts? We're partners and friends with Toyota, which it's how I know we look, I don't like to toot our own horn.
Toot it. Just toot it.
That's just how I know we've become a little bit of a bigger deal,
Whoa.
man. Toyotas, we're hanging out with the big boys. They sponsor all. sponsor all the sports teams in towns. And hey, they're our friends too. Their official vehicle of DNVR, actually. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. They built those durable legends, destined for greatness, perfect for Colorado. I always like to say they have a car for every type of Coloradan, and there are lots of them these days. Maybe you want to go to the mountains. Maybe you are a blue-collar worker. These trucks, the all-wheel drive, it's important to you. Maybe you want a low-emission car. You can get that too at Toyota because they just have so much to offer. So again, no matter what kind of Coloradan you are, do yourself a favor and visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. There's AutoNation Toyota Arapahoe in Centennial, Corbin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is a proud partner of the Denver Nuggets and an official vehicle of DNVR. Let's go places, Eric.
Yeah.
But also don't go anywhere yet. 15 more minutes. The show's still going.
All right, we're back on the DNVR Nuggets podcast presented by Bet365. Use the code DNVR365. When you download, sign up to use the app, bet along with us before every Nuggets game. Chilling in the Toyota Lounge, and we're talking some more trades here. We're just talking to Bogdan Bogdanovic and a potential trade with the Hawks. What's funny about that trade is like the more impactful piece coming back might be DeAndre Hunter.
For sure.
It probably is.
I look at him as actually the headliner of that trade, honestly. Like, because of all of the things people are saying, like Bogdanovic is a fantastic player, but he has been frequently injured throughout his career. He doesn't seem to be a guy you can fully count on to be that guy. And he's not having a particularly good year, but I think that just it would add something. But like, I think they need what DeAndre Hunter brings. Like, they need defense.
He's big. 6'8", 6'9".
Yes, and he is a defensive player. Like he is in many ways. He also scores 19 points a game and shoots 39% from three. Like those are incredible numbers.
And then you got Bogdanovic, who I just know would get a huge Jokic bump, and we know from watching him with Serbia is just a straight killer in big moments. Yeah, like I want that on my team.
Me too, dude. Yeah.
I was watching some highlights from their Olympics run earlier today, and like he has this knack for hitting that dagger three.
He does
every time they need it.
He does.
The one that Porter missed last night, down 6 in the corner.
Yeah, like he always hits that shot.
That one did kill me.
It, not us.
That one did kill me.
I think I audibly heard Brendan Vogt's heart breaking. It just sounded like this.
Yeah. I gotta be honest. You know what the worst part is? Didn't think it was going in.
That's the worst
partly
part,
because it wasn't
man.
even close.
Yeah.
But look, I also think sometimes this stuff gets overstated.
Yeah.
I know in some big moments it feels like he doesn't. There are some stats that suggest Porter as a shooter in tight games in fourth quarter much better than we like
Mike.
to laugh. Playoffs. The playoff numbers are really funny because it's
Feast or
yeah,
fail.
dude. There are some really good performances, and there are some absolute.
I mean, just look at last year.
And there's some
Lakers and then Timberwolves.
back to back. He was as good in that Lakers series as he was bad in the last 4 games of the
Second
World
best
Series.
player in the Lakers series.
It simply comes down to whether or not the team is being physical with him. If they aren't, he's dope. If
You know
they
what's
are,
funny though?
he's not.
And totally, yes. There was a game when they first played Minnesota this year, the first time. Coming out of that loss in the playoffs, like Mike was one of the only guys driving. He went at Rudy. Like,
He did
4
have a good
times.
game that
I was like,
one.
oh, he's changed his mindset against this team. But then in the last 3 games, again, he was lost. So it's frustrating. I understand people who want more consistency. I think he plays a crucial role in the ecosystem. But I also know that games like last night happen, and I know that's where these conversations come from.
Yeah. All right, let's preview a couple of the other big trades that could maybe happen over the next week. Jimmy Butler, that's still hanging out there in the ether. It seems like he's probably going to get dealt. The Warriors are now rumored to maybe be back in on Jimmy Butler as his asking price is going down.
I hope they do it.
And the Suns still want him, but it seems like nobody wants Bradley Beal. Maybe there's a mystery team. Maybe it's Milwaukee or something that pops in there. Could he go anywhere in the West? Let's just talk the West. Could Jimmy Butler go anywhere in the West that really alters the playoff picture, in your opinion?
Yeah, and he doesn't want to go. Memphis. Now, I don't know. I think there are some Memphis fans that would argue they don't want that trade anyway, by the way. They like what they've got going on. It's this sort of collective thing. And a guy who's maybe missing team flights to send a point, maybe you don't want to bring that in. But
Yeah.
depending on what the deal could be made is, I'm amazed by John Morant. I kind of think if he's your spearhead of the playoff, that you could be a great team and not quite have the same edge as teams with a Giannis or a Luka or a Jokic, right? So I get Memphis doing it, but Jimmy doesn't want it. The next one for me, I do think if Phoenix can do this, Eric, they should.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they should too, because it would be hilarious to watch them fall down again, doing the dumbest thing they can do, loading up on another washed superstar. I hope that Phoenix does it. It's just going to be, we'll get to look back at the start of Ishbia's career is just like an absolute, like, he's just looking to do something all the time. It like doesn't really matter what it is. He's like, I'm wheeling and I'm dealing. He's like, this is fun.
What's so great about Ishbia, man? Ishbia's like such a throwback to the god awful front offices from like 2007.
I mean, dude, he's like straight out of Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I know. He's like, oh, yeah.
He's like, you guys want to get a deal done today?
No,
What?
he is. Who was the Brooklyn Nets owner? The Russian dude.
Oh yeah,
Pokerov. Was it
Mikhail
Prokhorov.
Yeah.
He's Prokhorov 2.0.
Prokhorov's like, oh, I want all of the old Celtics.
That was a fun era,
Yeah.
man. That was
Like,
a fun
what?
era.
And then a couple years later, he was just out of there, and we never heard from him again.
Dude, of course.
Hell yeah, dude.
I think what I would do, what I would really try to do and endeavor to do if I was the Houston Rockets, is that I would
If
trade.
I was the Rockets, I would try to get Butler. I don't know why they're not trying to.
I would trade Jalen Green for Jimmy Butler today.
I would try to hold on to Jalen Green.
I would not. I mean, I think
He's
that
good.
Yeah, but Jimmy Butler can do what he does, and he's clutch. And Jalen Green is inherently a knucklehead, and he's a hooper. At heart, he's learned the way, but like
I would try to trade some of the other prospects.
I would get off of Jalen Green as soon as I could.
I think a lot
because
of Rockets fans agree. As I observe
I
from the
just
outside.
like I've developed a very well-known hatred of Jalen. Well, maybe not. Maybe just to me. I don't like Jalen Green as a player. I was impressed by him, but he can do a lot of good things, and he's now being lifted up by the smart and good play of the rest of the Houston Rockets, and allowed to be himself. And it's actually working quite well. But I would, if I could, to me that is something that gives them that, because they're on the path of the the Kings last year. And the Memphis the year before that, and frankly the Oklahoma City Thunder, where you have this squad that is wholly untested when it comes to playoff.
Yeah,
and they need that. They'll have Fred Van Vliet, but they need another veteran guy.
Can I throw you guys back though? Is that as good as Houston is that skipping steps?
yes, it is.
I don't think
It is, but maybe it's their Paul Millsap. I don't know.
Right.
What about De'Aaron Fox? De'Aaron Fox on Sacramento right now. Like, it seems like he just wants to go to the Spurs. And again, usually when players want to go and they pinpoint one place, they get there. Are there other teams that could get him?
Yeah, we just talked about him. Houston. I think it's scary. I mean, I'm not saying that with
That's where I would want to go, I feel like, if
Yeah.
I was De'Aaron Fox.
I kind of like his gambit of being like, hang on, okay, I will be Wemby's point guard. You know what I mean?
I'll do it. I will
Do we
bow
know-
at the
yeah.
sword.
Do we know that for sure that that's his one place he would go? Is that
I
just
think he's got a
random
list of a
speculation?
couple. It's San Antonio one. That's his preferred. And then it's Houston, and there is one other team.
I'm crossing my fingers for San Antonio because I know the Wemby wave is happening, but I think it can just be like on the other end of Denver's kind of run. And I think Houston getting Fox complicates things right now.
I do too.
I think it
because
complicates their path right now. Denver's path.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you're thinking about Denver. Does that actually benefit the Rockets versus hurting Denver? I mean, I don't know, man.
Can the Warriors get anybody that puts them
No.
back in the mix?
Nope.
They're done.
They're done.
Yeah.
They're done. They're most impactful players. Draymond Green, Steph Curry. Steph Curry's still incredible, but like, you need to put two big impact players next to him.
What if they get Butler and Miles Turner?
I think they could potentially be in the mix.
So the after the OKC part, the West is open. Now this may just be OKC. Remember the year Denver won the title? Everyone kept saying the West is open, and we're like, no, Denver's actually been in first for 3 months.
Yeah.
that's where Thunder fans are right now. So I'm going to give them their due.
Yeah.
Let's say after OKC though, I think a handful of teams can either earnestly or lie to themselves and say we're a trade away, we're 2 trades away.
Yeah. All right, let's hit some super chats, and then we will bring on Tim Legler to talk about the Nuggets and this recent 3-game losing streak with us.
BJ Malaise, somehow I'm back. Fire up the backometer.
Fire it up, Kale!
BJ Malaise is back. We're mired in BJ. We're covered in BJ Malaise, dude.
I hate when you say that so
Why?
much.
Why do you hate that? Because
I would say it's the verbiage. Yvonne NBG 62. Serbia is waiting for this, referring to Bogdan, by the way.
not BJ Malaise.
No, not being covered in BJ Malaise. Health is the only issue, says Yvonne. Janny Munson, are we worried about the 40-20 rule?
That you have to win 40 games before you lose 20 games to be a
What's the Nuggets
championship.
record right now?
We're getting close to the.
I think they have to win 12.
28 and 19.
Yeah, we're
Not on pace.
boy.
I mean, no, just because the Nuggets season has been so up and down, like injuries. It's not a typical season. So I think they can get there by the end of it, but I'm not worried about that rule specifically. No.
I think kind of like the LeBron-led Cavs teams, like when you it's those teams probably aren't, the historical precedent probably doesn't do as much for you as like, what's our best basketball look like? Can we get there? Yvonne MBG 62. I fell asleep after last night's game, so vote, read it. Last night was Project Bullshit.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
First, Jokic not
Write the
interested in
report, Kale.
defense. MPJ handles. Guy can't hold the ball with 2 hands to save his life. This is back. It had left for a while.
We weren't talking about it. In fact, I
No.
think that we had started to compliment him.
Yeah,
on
maybe that was the
his
problem.
new hand strength.
Yep. And then Yvonne NBG 62. Get Alexa Avramovic.
Oh, let's go.
He's
Let's
a
go.
showstopper. I'm so in, dude.
Let's go.
Yes, sure.
All right, thanks for the super chats, guys. All right, now we'll welcome on Tim Legler. Me and him, we talked about the Nuggets' recent 3-game losing streak, what he thinks of Jamal Murray's play, should Denver make a panic trade, and also I thought he had some interesting thoughts on the Nuggets' new starting lineup. So let's talk with Legs right now. All right, Tim. So Nuggets have lost 3 games in a row. The Minnesota game, which you called, you were on hand for. You saw that one courtside. The Bulls loss, one of the most embarrassing losses of the season. And then this loss just yesterday against the Knicks, national TV. What's been your takeaway from these last 3 losses? Obviously, you saw one of them up close and personal, but what's been kind of the biggest trend you've seen with this Nuggets team recently?
Well, all right, so let's go back to the Minnesota game, and I called the game, and going into that, they'd won 12 out of 15, just playing really well. In fact, so well that when you looked at the landscape of the West, you got Oklahoma City, clearly everybody will agree, that it has been on a different level than everybody else in the West this year. So the question becomes, who's going to close the gap with them and claim that real estate as maybe the second best team, and a team that you could see envisioning playing them in the conference finals, because we expect Oklahoma City to get there. And it looked like Denver was rounding into that team. Now, that's not to take anything away from Houston, because they continue to impress. They're not going anywhere. But I still think with such a lack of deep playoff experience amongst those guys, and not really having that true identifiable top of the food chain offensive player on your team, I think it's reasonable to think there are some questions about them. Memphis is right there as well. But again, I think Memphis can be inconsistent. And when you got Denver playing as well as they were playing, and the best player in the NBA on your team, it started to look like, you know what? If they can avoid Oklahoma City's bracket, which basically means get to 2 or 3, they've got a great chance to end up being that second team that's standing, the last man standing against Oklahoma City. And that's kind of what Michael Malone made me feel like when I talked to him before the game in Minnesota. He was in such a good mood. He was so impressed with the way his team has played. He was citing all these numbers over that 15-game stretch and the way they had climbed in rating on both ends of the floor and all these things. And everything was great. Raving about Russell Westbrook, raving about Jokic, obviously. And then the game happened. and I'm sitting there calling the game, and I'm like, I mean, they offered no resistance.
None.
And I kept thinking to myself, and my partner on the call, Mark Jones, we go to break and we were like, okay, like they got to make a run. Like I thought halftime, when they gave up basically 70 points in the first half, I thought halftime Michael Malone's going to get into them. They're going to come out. They're going to show some resistance and push back like right here. It never happened. And they got blown out, man. And I'm like, okay. So then I leave there that night. I'm like, okay, I definitely didn't see their best version. I was very impressed with Minnesota, but I didn't see Denver's best version. So it is what it is. It's a long season. Chalk it up to a one-off. And then Chicago happens. And now you're like, okay, what is that? Like, that's a game. If you get embarrassed by Minnesota, then you got to go make the statement against Chicago, right? That's just something that has to happen. They don't do that. The Knicks loss, I'm not too worried about. It's a really good team on the road. That's a tough place to play. I'm not too worried about that. Now, the trend over these 3 games is the defense has been anemic, and now they're starting to change their lineup that they were having great success with because Aaron Gordon is back now, and it's been enough of the off-the-bench thing. Now he's back in the starting lineup, and Christian Brown goes to the bench. So, like, that's different. So right now, yeah, it's a little bit more unstable than it was a week ago. But overall, what I've seen out of them over the last month, I'm pretty encouraged about the Nuggets.
Yeah. Well, that makes me feel a little better. But like you said, the defense, I mean, they gave up 133 to the Timberwolves, 129 to the Bulls. And that Bulls game, that was like, that's the one that did it for me. I mean, the defense against Chicago in that game was just so non-existent, no resistance or anything. One guy who has been playing well, though, is Jamal Murray. I mean, he's coming out of his, winter hibernation here. He had 25 against Minnesota in that game. These last 10 games, averaging almost 24 points per game. Are you seeing the old Jamal Murray more and more? Like, do you think this renaissance from him is legit? Like, is he looking like the Jamal Murray of old to you?
He really is. And even the night, the Minnesota game started there. Like, my first time seeing him, and look this good in a while. And I said it before the game. I said it to Mark Jones. I said, man, Jamal looks like he's going to cook tonight. Like, I was just watching him warm up, and it was just so effortless. He was moving so good. The ball wasn't hitting the rim and all of the stuff he was doing pregame. And that carried over. Now, they weren't very good as a team, but Jamal Murray was really good in that game offensively, and he got what he wanted. And remember, like, this was a team that bottled him up. And I know he was dealing with a calf injury last year in the playoffs, but they embarrassed him early in that series with their defensive pressure and their length. And they targeted him to take him out. And they did it even in the comeback game in Game 7. Like, so that was so lingering in the air against this team. And so Jamal Murray came out and he was operating with absolutely no restrictions, and he did what he wanted to do offensively. Of everything that's happened the last 3 games, like, that to me would be the one I'm more focused on than short-term real defensive issues for them, or a lack of competitive spirit against Minnesota and Chicago. I'm sure Michael Malone would agree with that. I'd be, yeah, okay. You don't want to see that when you've been playing that well, but honestly, I'd concentrate more on the flip side with Jamal Murray. That to me is one of the single biggest determining factors for what this team's ceiling is going to be in the postseason. And Jamal Murray right now looks really good, physically, in rhythm, and it just looks like he's back again operating at 100%.
Yeah. I mean, to me and a lot of people, it is the single most determining factor when you're looking at this team and how high is their playoff ceiling. Can they still be in this top tier championship contenders? It comes down to Jamal. It really does. I mean, Nikola Jokic is going to be that guy in the playoffs. I think you have some confidence, especially in some of these other, top role guys, the Aaron Gordons of the world, Christian Brown, some other questions on the roster. But I mean, if they're going to ascend to that tier, I don't know if they can get to Oklahoma City's tier this season, but if they can get to a championship contending level, it's going to be because Jamal Murray's Jamal Murray again.
Totally agree with that. And because here, look, the bottom line is, from an initiation standpoint with a live dribble, outside of Jokic, he represents like the only other real threat. I mean, Westbrook has played very well in this role, but he's got serious limitations with his shooting. Now, he makes up for it in other ways, and he's giving Denver something they desperately needed. The athleticism, the speed, the competitiveness, I think, has been something that's been eye-opening to all of them. The verbal competitiveness. Yep. On a daily basis. And Michael Malone has described it as a bunch of nice guys that are quiet. That's what they were before. Westbrook is not that. He's not quiet, and they've needed some of that. So he's brought a lot, but he is not a guy that is with a live dribble initiate your offense, he's very consistent at this stage of his career. Jamal Murray is a totally different weapon. And when he's operating at his best, the two-man game, what that involves with Jokic and what that requires to stop that, when Jokic is off the floor, being able to run it through Murray, able to let him hunt shots off ball screen or dribble handoffs, when he's playing like this, like you buy into like ultimately what they could be. You got to remember, like though last year in 12 playoff games, he shot 40% from the field, and he wasn't right. He was not right. If he looks like this when they get to the playoffs, depending on where they're seated, they've got a much better chance to get through a couple of rounds if they avoid Oklahoma City than they would have last year when he was playing the way he was and feeling the way he was physically.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to another big storyline that happened last night in this loss to the Knicks. The Nuggets change up their starting lineup. Aaron Gordon has been coming off this bench for this great stretch of basketball that Nuggets had played before, these last two losses prior to tonight, when they've looked as connected, they've looked in as good of a rhythm as they've been in all season. It's because of a lot of it was because of him playing with the second unit, but it did seem like eventually they were going to bring him back into the starting lineup. He was back there last night. The result was Christian Braun goes to the bench. Russell Westbrook sticks in the starting lineup. And I think there's a couple reasons why they did it. I mean, one of the storylines of Russell Westbrook's season is he has been amazing. A big reason is that he's playing with Nikola Jokic. Those two sharing the floor together has been a key to Russell Westbrook's success. That two-man game, Michael Malone called that two-man game like the most potent in basketball, which is very interesting. I feel like there's a lot of levels to that, especially with him being teammates with Jamal Murray. But what was your reaction to that? And what do you think of that starting lineup? Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook, Michael Porter, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, when we talked to Michael Malone before the Minnesota game, and Aaron Gordon at that time still coming off the bench, minutes restriction after the injury, and he said, listen, Aaron came to them and said, listen, man, when I am ready to go and I'm fully back, if you still want to bring me off the bench, I'm totally fine with it. Whatever it takes to help the team win. So he was kind of praising him for his unselfishness, leadership. Yep. So that seemed to be taken off the table. Like that mindset, which is a real thing with some players, like, they're in a better place mentally starting. That didn't seem to be a factor for Michael Malone. And he said, there's no timeline on this. I don't know. And he also said, by the way, he didn't know necessarily, depending on the matchup, what he was going to go with going forward. Maybe it's not always the same, depending on what you need size-wise, right? Because one of the things I noticed in the Minnesota game was when you didn't have him on the court, you basically had three guards, a thin, long wing in Michael Porter Jr., not the most physical guy in the world, and Jokic. What I noticed was they were attacking by coming out of the blitzes on Anthony Edwards. The ball was going into the middle of the floor, usually to Gobert, and then Jokic would rotate up on that. Now, the guys that were trying to protect the rim on these baseline slashes and lobs were guards, and they looked really small against that team. And so I think it kind of stood out to me, and I was like, okay, you know what? There's going to be nights that you're just going to have more minutes out of a bigger lineup. And I think that's probably where Michael Malone is going to fall, but I don't know that he's going to go with this all the time. Aaron Gordon, look, they won a championship with him as a starter. So, you're hoping a peak level, we get back to that. I don't think this will affect Christian Braun's psyche. He's still going to play 30 minutes, probably a lot of nights. Starters minutes. He's a young player. I think he can handle this and cope with it. Westbrook, you're not going to bring him off the bench, I don't think, because of what you said. If you bring him off the bench, you lose 12 minutes to 14 minutes at the start of the game and the start of the second half that he's not playing with Jokic. Because that's just the way it works. You're not subbing a guy in 3 minutes into the half. Usually those guys sub in 6-7 minutes in minimum. And so that's 12 to 14 minutes you've taken off the plate. He will not play with Jokic on that night. And by the way, if he does check in at that point, a couple minutes later, Jokic is checking out. So just you start to look at the way these pieces are stacked. You're going to have too many minutes without a very valuable combination that has proven to be getting better and better and better. And the whole league is noticing how good he's been with Jokic. You got to max out the time on the court with him. So that's why you add all that up. Christian Braun was going to be the guy to go to the bench. and now give it more of a sample size to see how this looks and how this plays out over time. I'm not too concerned about it either way because Michael Malone has flexibility with what kind of lineup he wants to play to close games, during the games. But at the start, I think you're better off having Westbrook on the floor as a starter and Christian Brown being the guy that accepts the fact that Aaron Gordon's been a starter on this team, won a title with this team. You need more size in that starting lineup. It makes sense to me.
Yeah. And I think they'll go with this for a little bit, see how it goes, get some data on it, and then reassess. But I think there's a chance this could be the lineup for the rest of the season. Lastly, trade deadline's coming up, just over a week away from it. This team's been up and down this season. Just from your perspective, do you think they need a move? Maybe it's minor, maybe it's major. I'm guessing you don't think they need a major move, but how would you kind of approach the trade deadline if you were in the Nuggets brain trust, and where would you look to maybe get some help?
I don't know that I'm like of the mindset that, oh man, Denver's got to do something. I really think what I said in the beginning is true. I think I probably right now, and this is before I see what Dallas looks like with an extended period of time with Luka back, because they're just trying to keep their head above water right now without him. When he comes back, and I think going into the year, I thought they got better, but we haven't seen them whole enough to know that. So let's see when he comes back, and maybe I go, you know what, after a month of that, actually Dallas is still the team that's going to end up against Oklahoma City. But right now, short of that, without seeing that, I still think it's Denver is the most logical team to me. Now, you might say, well, yeah, but what about closing the gap with OKC? Look, bottom line is this: Oklahoma City doesn't have a ton of playoff success together. So that they're still missing that. This isn't like some team that's been in the finals the last 2 years and added, a guy like Hartenstein and added Caruso. They're still trying to figure out how to even get to the conference finals. So as a result, I don't know that I would panic if I were Denver. If something popped up and made it obvious built around your role players, I guess you'd have to look at that. Certainly if it was something that could make you better defensively without sacrificing offensive rhythm, you take a look at that. But I don't know, man. I kind of want to see this group and what Michael Malone's going to do now with a little bit of a different lineup. Let me see an extended period of this and what it looks like. Unfortunately, obviously, an extended period means you're past the trading deadline. You're past the point of no return if it doesn't work out, and you could have done something. I don't know that there's going to be obvious moves available to them that are going to make them better and more viable. I think they have a really good shot of ending up being the second best team in the Western Conference.
Yeah. And if you get that, I think you got to feel pretty comfortable being on the opposite side of the bracket from OKC and with, your championship experience. So that makes sense to me.
No doubt about it. And look, going in, and let's just say it played out that way. They get the 2 or the 3 seed. Let's just say they get the 3 seed and they avoid OKC and they end up getting into the conference finals. A team like OKC that lost in the second round a year ago, yeah, they got better. But look, by the way, OKC still has stuff to figure out. They've got to get Chet Holmgren back and figure out their lineups that they want to play. Like, how much can you play Hartenstein and Chet together? Does that work? We don't even know. We haven't even seen it. And if it doesn't work, how does that affect the minutes for Hartenstein and his overall effectiveness? So they got stuff to figure out down the road, but you'd be going into a series with Nikola Jokic. And by the way, if you end up as the 3 seed and you win 2 rounds, that means you're red hot. You're feeling good. You just navigated a couple of tough series. I think most people in Denver would take their chances against OKC in a 7-game series with Nikola Jokic leading the way. When you've gotten yourself to that point, it means you're in a really good place. And OKC still hasn't broken through the second round.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Tim, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Anytime.